Hi, thanks for joining us today. I'm Michelle Green with the Office of Being Learning with the Indiana Department of Education. And this is a Geek Out, which is part of our Indiana Digital Learning Month celebration. And Geek Outs are simply a Google Hangout on air where a group of enthusiastic educators come together to talk shop, if you would. And today we're talking about digital content. So our panel is going to introduce themselves in a moment, but I'll just give you a little bit more information about what we're doing and why. This is the fourth Geek Out in the series of 10, and I just saw where one of our panelists might be, so I'll be checking an email in just a second. But this is leading up to Digital Learning Day, March 13th, where we will be doing a full series coming back to each of the topics that we've covered from the Hoosier Student Digital Leaders, Makerspace, digital content, all of these different areas. And there's our guest. We'll be revisiting groups, and some of these folks may not be able to come back that day, but we will be bringing back a digital content group, a panelist, who will also have their classes, and they'll be speaking. And I see a grin because we actually do have a class with us. We're working on projects right now, but we might get to hear from them a little bit today just as an extra bonus. So thank you to my guests for being here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over and let you introduce to the class waving. That's awesome. Let you introduce yourselves. So let's go ahead and start with Casey.
Yeah, hi Michelle. Thanks so much. My name is Casey Neidlinger, and I am a 7th grade math teacher at Bluffton Middle School, Bluffton, Indiana, up in northeastern Indiana. I teach math and pre-algebra here to all of our 7th graders. I have all of our 7th graders throughout the day. And we have one-to-one iPad deployment throughout our corporation. So we've been one-to-one with iPads for, I think this is going on our 4th year now. And it's been fabulous, and I switched over to digital content right away, jumped on board, and I've loved it. My kids really enjoy it, and so I'm excited to hear what everybody has to say and throw out some ideas and just join the conversation and learn more of what everybody's got going on.
That's exactly what I'm excited about, for you guys to meet each other and get a chance to talk. So Kyle, why don't you share a little bit about your background? Mr. Klein? Okay, we're going to toss it over to Mr. Oslinger.
Okay, hi, I'm Steve Auslander. I teach 5th grade here at Allisonville Elementary. It's in Washington Township. And I have done a BYOD. We're not a one-to-one school. We have an iPad cart. We have a laptop cart. But I piloted BYOD about 3 years ago. So we use our devices for learning in the classroom. And I think that using digital media is a great way to engage the kids. It's also a great way to have the kids create things and to connect with people all over the world.
Absolutely, and I love that the perspective, we have a representative who's been at one-to-one for a number of years now and has really gotten to the point where it's just kind of ordinary, this is how we run school. And then we have someone who, and I love how you said this, we have carts, like, oh, but some people would be very jealous of that. And so the fact that you have BYOD and CART and you're being very innovative in how you do things, and I love the things that you share, it speaks really well to all the different types of viewers that we're going to have. We have such a spectrum. So great, Kyle's back with us, and thanks for reconnecting. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Sorry, our Wi-Fi has been kind of iffy this week, and so I apologize. I'll always try to get back in if I get out. But I am Kyra Klein. I teach at Twin Lakes High School in Monticello, Indiana, up by Indiana Beach. This year I teach Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus, and a college algebra class. This is our first year actually being full 9 through 12, one-to-one with laptops. And in the past, we've just been slowly integrating them from the senior, junior, sophomores, and freshman level. This year, we're also kind of highlighting the e-learning days for when we have snow days, which I personally love because I'm going to get to teach at home in my sweatshirts and jeans and stuff. So it also forces you to really kind of reassess students in a mathematical classroom that's a little different than just paper and pencil. And so it's taking a little bit of learning from the kids, but I personally love it because it just makes me kind of think outside the box also.
And this is another reason I'm so excited about today's panel, because as a former English teacher, it makes so much sense to me how to go digital. It's just natural. But a lot of times when I talk with teachers who are coming from different content areas, I see lots of hurdles. And you have certainly overcome those. And I'm excited to have you share a little bit about the resources you're using and the different things that the way you've come through this, the process that you've had of reaching some successes. And so what I forgot to mention earlier is that anyone who's viewing, and we do have one viewer, and I suspect I might even know who that is. We have some great regulars. But anyone who's viewing is welcome to ask questions to our panelists so that you can be part of the conversation. You can use the blue button on the viewer window, or you're absolutely welcome to tweet us at #INELearn. So let's go ahead and delve into our first question, which was, how did you get started doing this content curation or digital content creation? And not so much the how, but the why. Anyone want to take the first stab at it?
I can go first, if that's okay. So I always wanted to have a way to kind of connect with my students beyond the school day. And so I dabbled with this tool called Edmodo, which is, I think, like the king of all websites and apps for me at least, for my classroom. And it was great just to be able to share things with my students, to comment. Like, for example, a student did this really awesome video a couple years back, and I showed it to my little boy, who I talk about, my little boy Benny. I talk about him all the time. And I showed it to him at bedtime. He says, "Dad, that's really a great video. That student should become a filmmaker." I said, "You know what? You should totally tell this student." His name was Henry last year. And so I just did a little selfie video, and he said, "Henry, you should be a filmmaker." That took me 15 seconds out of my life to do. And I sent it to Henry, and boom.
And we froze there for
the next day. It just because I wanted a way to engage and connect with my kids in an easy way. So that was kind of the beginning, kind of for me. I could talk a lot more as well.
I love that example, because you actually talked about the one thing that we always come to whenever we discuss any of this kind of going digital and integrating technology. It's really about relationships and being a teacher. And so, woohoo, couldn't set the course better for the discussion with that. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Stephen, I was kind of like you. I wanted to be able to connect with my kids, and I felt like I wasn't able to hit every kid every day. There just wasn't enough time in the day in the way I was teaching, with the 20-minute or 10, 15-minute lecture in my classes, and then trying to get some homework time in there. I was sending home homework to parents who didn't have pre-algebra knowledge and didn't have the knowledge that I want, that they were struggling at home at night helping their kids with homework, and I knew I was the one that needed to be helping their kids with homework. So for me, it was wanting to find a way to I incorporated the flipped classroom whenever we got our iPads, and get my kids their digital content so that they could get their content on their iPad at home, and then we could come in and work together on projects and different learning opportunities and stuff like that. So for me, it was being able to find more one-on-one teacher time and how can I get more out of my day, and going digital allowed me to do that. So that's really what why I love digital.
Okay, Mr. Klein, no pressure, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I hate to piggyback off of everything they said, but it's real similar to my experience also. About 3 years ago, I went to a workshop with John Kugelin, and he is the one that really introduced me to the flipped learning. And so after that, I just kind of ran with the ball and just experimented with different options, different things to do. But the big part of it was because I don't want to be the sage on the stage. I don't want to have to be the person that's up talking for 45 minutes because we're on block scheduling. And so I want to be up there for a half hour, 45 minutes, and then the students have like 15 minutes for me maybe to interact with them. And so kind of like Casey said, you can't get around to all of them. And so I kind of started with the flip learning, and then from there it's just kind of expanded into other digital content and other resources. And so I think it's definitely helped me make more students feel comfortable in the classroom with relationships and being able to ask questions and all kinds of, I don't know, that's what teaching is. It's about the relationships. And so that's what's really helped me in my career.
Well, and I love that you all brought up different, you said you piggybacked, and you did, which, why wouldn't you, right? But you all brought up really distinct aspects of this, too. So it's not just impacting your in-class time, it's impacting beyond your classroom walls. You're giving students different ways of learning, opportunities to revisit things. There's just so many different aspects to this. So I'm so excited. This is a great start to our conversation. So I almost reluctantly will bring up the word tools because I don't want us to get harbored down deep in the trenches with what tools can do for us. But for people who aren't really doing digital content yet or haven't started creating or curating their own, I'd love for you guys just to kind of give us a hint of what you're using and how, you've mentioned the pieces, the devices. And Steve mentioned Edmodo, so a learning management system, and how you can, a platform to hold your material. What are some things that you might suggest to people who are looking at starting some digital content, maybe doing something for the first time on Digital Learning Day?
I could jump in again. So for me, I could throw a few tools. If you wanted to start with just having the kids creating things, again, I am very partial to Edmodo. Any learning management system is fine, but I love Edmodo because, for example, a few students yesterday went out in the hallway and they used an app called Chatterpix, which is basically just make pictures talk. And a few of them made some really cool talking triangles, and the triangles classified themselves. One of them spoke with a Yoda voice, and said, "Hey Vic, come here. Is it okay if he does the voice?"
Sure.
Vic, do the equilateral triangle voice with Yoda.
What do you want me to say?
You're equilateral because all my sides are congruent.
I am an equilateral because all of my sides are congruent.
So he's got the voice down, right? So, good job, Vic. And so he sends it to me. What's amazing about Edmodo is now not only can he create something, but he can send it right to me. Because my kids are 10 and 11. They don't have email addresses. Okay. Sorry. Open a can of worms there. But they're not supposed. I can't mandate that, and we're not a Google school. So
that's a parent decision. You're right.
So I can't mandate that. So with Edmodo, they can actually create something and send it to me, and then I have it. And then what I like to do, my little 2 cents that I like to do is another tool, website that I highly recommend someone just starting out is create an account on SchoolTube. So everyone knows YouTube, of course, but when you upload something to YouTube, there's always on the bottom related videos, which are very often not related and not appropriate. Plus, YouTube is often blocked. It's blocked at our school without a teacher authentication code. So with SchoolTube, you can upload any a video, and every video that's been uploaded to SchoolTube has been approved by a teacher. So you at least have some feeling that it's appropriate. So what I will often do is if a student sends me something, I will often upload it to SchoolTube, so then I can email it to their parents to kind of brag on the kids. But then what I also like to do is I like to tweet it out on Twitter. So the one that Emma is one of my students, she actually created the equilateral Yoda talking triangle, but Vic used his Yoda voice. They kind of teamed up. And then I found a Twitter handle called Star Wars in the Classroom, and I tweeted it to them, and I haven't shared it with the class yet, but Star Wars in the Classroom called the students brilliant. And when that happens, we call that getting Twitter love. And so we have a bulletin board, a Twitter love bulletin board, and that's just motivation for the kids that their work is really good work. So I just kind of said a whole lot. But basically what I would say is SchoolTube is great because you can upload kids' work and not feel icky about it, because YouTube sometimes can have a negative connotation. Edmodo, so the kids can share it with you easily, because they often don't have email addresses. And then the idea of using Twitter to kind of share your students' work with the world, and then the kids get confirmation that their work is good work.
What a great
outside.
cycle. And I'm so going to be bragging about your Twitter Love board. The other thing I want to mention too about Edmodo, and this is something that I think is a big shift for a lot of us. Our students are so used to turning their work into the teacher, and the teacher sees it and decides who else sees it. And groups like Edmodo, kids can share it, and their classmates see it. So not only is the Yoda voice going to be memorable for the students that work on that project, but all of their peers are going to have that now kind of ingrained into their mind. And it also kind of sets that bar, gives them a chance to kind of compete in a really friendly, exciting kind of way. Well, this is what I did, and sharing that. So great. I love the cycle that you created with those 3 tools. Either one of you want to jump in and share yours?
Go ahead, Casey.
Okay. Yeah. I thought those were great. I would definitely agree with all those. My kids love, if I were going to throw out one of my kids' favorite things to do, we love to create stuff, and so I have kind of a challenge board that gives them choice. At the end of units and stuff, they get to choose how they want to show me what they know. So I have a lot of different apps and stuff where they can choose their way that they show me stuff, whether it's a Canva, picture, different things, but their favorite thing to do in class is Kahoot, and it's ways that I do exit tickets and prior knowledge stuff. And if you haven't checked out Kahoot, I would highly, highly recommend going and checking out Kahoot. For us with iPads, it's great, and I know Chromebooks work the same way, or laptops, and I know it's very friendly with cross-device. It's really like a game that they can click on real fast and log in, and I don't even know how to explain it. Just a game that they play to show what they know, and we played at the end of class, and they just love to go through and see who can win at Kahoot. So that's a fun one. ThingLink is another one that I really like to pull stuff from. They will pull vocabulary in onto a ThingLink and then pull some videos in and kind of put together their own learning. I guess that's another one of my big things. I wanted my students to become more accountable for their learning instead of me having to give it all to them. I wanted me to be more of a facilitator and them to be more accountable to go out and really figure stuff out on their own. So we do a lot of ThingLink projects. So if I were going to say 2 of my favorite things that we like to do in the classroom, it's play Kahoot, and then we also do a lot of ThingLink projects with different activities. And then we're not a Google school, but I'm a Google educator, and I love Google. So we do a lot of Google Forms and Docs where we collaborate on different projects. And you don't have to be a Google school to start to love Google. So if you dig into Google Docs, in Google Drive, it's fabulous. So those would be my favorite things to use in the classroom.
So I have can I ask a question for Casey?
Go for it.
Okay, so I've kind of experimented with ThingLink a little bit, but I maybe I'm wrong. But do you have to be 13 to create an account? How does that work?
You know what? All of my kids are, so I'm not sure because I'm not sure. I guess I've never had to stumble across that block. I'll have to check.
Do you need an email address to sign up?
You know what? It's actually part of. Are you guys a Google for Education district? I can't recall.
I'm not.
Okay. So one of the things I would recommend is, because I haven't looked at that lately myself either, but I used to when I was working with middle schoolers. So just go and look at their requirements. It may have that loophole where if you're using for educational purposes. The other thing is to consider your district's very specific AUP or responsible use policies. If it talks about using digital tools in the classroom for educational purposes, there's some coverage there as well. But that's something I think I'm glad you asked that, because we always want to be looking at tools that are appropriate. Just like you mentioned about the email with the kids. People make different decisions, but as educators, we need to be the role models of what's appropriate and what's acceptable use, because we're the first digital citizens that our students are really encountering aside from their parents, and all of us are learning. So we want to do the best we can for our kids. It's a great question. And I love that so far we've talked about both formative assessment type of uses, and we've also talked about giving students the power to create, to show us, not just respond to our questions, to really create something that shows their learning. So Again, Kyle, you put yourself in last. You gotta follow up here.
I'm just trying to be nice. So I really like Steven's haircut. It's kind of the same as mine. So
Yeah, we look good.
Yeah, good looking guys. So, probably the biggest one that I use is called blendspace.com, and it is a place where you can just curate and put all of your stuff together, all of your links. So like with my flipped learning classes, you can insert YouTube videos, Google Drive, anything from your Google Drive. You can insert images. So you can import stuff from Dropbox, Guru Learning. Oh my gosh, there's like 6 or 7 or 8 different things you can just attach, and it's just a nice drag and drop over. So you just can search for something on the web, drag and drop it over, and it looks like a nice, probably, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of, just it's like a 3x3 matrix kind of like, and you just kind of click through it where the kids can click on whatever they need, and it's just nice to put all links and everything, not just videos, but everything for that lesson, anything extra I might find into that space, and so that's what my flip classes use, and that way everything that they need for that lesson is just all in one spot. So that's like where I kind of create everything, and then I just put it into our learning management system because you can embed it, you can tweet it, you can put it on your Google Plus, I believe. Edmodo, it's a great place. You can embed it right into Edmodo, and so I would usually create it, tweet it out to my students, and then also have a link to it on the learning management system. So I use that. I use Desmos, the online graphing calculator, and since it's high school, Casey might be able to use it for middle school, but it's an online graphing calculator. It's free, and the kids actually can type in an equation or just like a standard y equals mx plus b, and they'll give you sliders for the m and the b, and you can adjust just by sliding left and right, like the m, and see what's happening to the graph. And so I do a lot of exploration with the students on that. I'm actually going to have my college algebra class next hour, 3/8. Oh, there's a good song.
Sorry.
That's all right. They're actually going to create their own rational function next hour in Desmos, and then upload it into ThingLink and create their own ThingLink by adding tags to it. So those are just a few of my favorites. And also Exit Ticket. If you go to exitticket.com, it's just like a quick, you make your own quizzes, formative assessments, and the data you get back from it, though, is just phenomenal for each student.
What's that called? Educate?
That one's called Exit Ticket.
Oh, Exit Ticket.
Yeah, it's kind of like Socrative, only a lot better.
Educate is waiting to be developed. Maybe we have a team here. We can start working on it.
Yeah. Exit Ticket is just phenomenal with the data you get back on the students in the class. So I love it.
Awesome. Are any of you, because I'm going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about as an English teacher, familiar with GeoGebra? Sounds very similar to the graphing calculator. That was my big winning tool 4 years ago when we went one-to-one down in Evansville. It was quite transformational for kids to be able to, like you said, to manipulate an equation and to see what that really means. It's so powerful for them to get that, now I see what you're talking about kind of moment. Yeah. So, again, great mashup of tools there. I mean, you went last with your time, but you pulled it out. I mean, that was quite the mashup. What I want is, our next question, we kind of talked about how are you delivering it and how are your kids interacting, but you guys did such a great job. I think we should get to kind of that misconception about engagement. So often people say, it's all about engagement, and you give a kid a device, they're automatically engaged. Although I think there's also that concern, the flip of that is they're also immediately distracted. It's really about instructional practices. So I'm wondering, what do you consider when you're working or planning on introducing something new, or when you're purposefully working on your digital content aspect of your lesson plans? What are some things that you're taking into consideration?
I can go first. Trying to think. Whenever I am planning my lessons, I guess one of the biggest hurdles whenever we were talking about going one-to-one, and I think this is whenever we talk to people who aren't in the classroom and they say, well, how do you keep your kids on task? They've got this iPad. How do you keep them from playing? How do you keep them engaged? Well, you're a teacher with an iPad, you're a teacher. Without an iPad, it comes down to classroom management skills, as well as an engaging lesson with an iPad is an engaging lesson without an iPad as well. But the iPad makes it, or any digital device is going to make it, I feel, a little bit easier to keep them engaged. They're a little bit more excited about doing something on the iPad than me standing up at a chalkboard and doing something with them. But for me, whenever I'm going through a lesson, I want to make sure that I'm putting enough tools in there that things are short enough that it's going to keep their attention span. So I'm not putting 10 to 15, 20-minute videos in any lesson that they're going to need to watch. I want to keep things short and simple, but then I also want to make sure that I'm going back and doing those checks for understanding. So I use a lot of my Google Forms to go in and do that, where they do a quick check for understanding. And there's a lot of, especially for me with math, different tools out there that give them that immediate feedback that they need. IXL is a good one. Brilliant. There's just some really good tools that they can get questions and they immediately know how they did, right, wrong, and then what they did wrong. So while I might be working with a small group, kids can be getting that immediate feedback, even if it's not, right from me. But I really like to make sure that it still feels like they're collaborating with people. So that's another way that I like to get those Google Docs in there. So as I'm planning my lesson, I like to still have checks for understanding, and I like to have some collaboration. Even though it's a digital lesson, I want them to work with people on part of it, I guess is what I'm talking about. I don't know. Guys, I'm going to throw it over to you because I feel like I'm not making sense.
You tell me. You said something about something called Brilliance. Is that what you called it?
Brilliant. It's a math questions, just kind of like IXL. Have you been on IXL?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, Brilliant's a very similar, where they get questions, and then I feel like they're more word-based questions, word problems, deeper thinking questions, but you get to pick your grade level, so it's really nice.
Cool. It's a website, Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Check
Brilliant.
it out. Thank you. Cool.
So, and you can just click the link into a lesson. So, like, whenever I set up my flipped classroom lesson, I'll have a video, and then I'll put in a check for understanding, like a Google form, and then after that, I'll probably do a Brilliant link where they have to go in and do some practice problems.
Cool. Hey, one more thing. So one of my students, this is for Casey, put a note on my desk that they wanted me to mention something about Kahoot. And so it says, open, look at this. This is a note for me. And they said, don't forget to tell about our Kahoot Wall of Champs.
Oh, I'd love to hear about it.
Andy. So I have to. So we love Kahoot too. It's amazing. Love it as well. And we created a poster, and it's for first, second, third, and fourth. And really, Kahoot has the top 5, but 5 got cut off, I guess.
Sorry.
Hydrogel?
Sorry.
You're good. You're good. So anyway, and then at the end of the game, if you get in first place, you go and sign in the first place box. If you get in second place, so it's just kind of a fun, we call it the Wall of Fame. Right now it's covered by the green screen, so but I can maybe send you a picture of it. But it's just kind of a fun way to have the kids record like how they've been doing.
Definitely, want to see that.
Yeah.
You got it covered.
Okay. Oh, it's okay.
Then you can see the class.
You want to go ahead?
One thing I was going to add about engagement is differentiated instruction through digital content is so great. I feel like I'm able to differentiate my instruction so much easier through digital lessons than I ever was before. So that's one way I keep my kids engaged. I'm not giving them stuff that's way too hard. I don't know. I just thought of that. A side note.
That makes sense.
Probably the best way that whenever I try to come up with a lesson plan, I try to think of because I have high school kids, so my kids are a lot different than yours, and they have they have a little experience, but not necessarily in an educational realm. So some of them may have a Gmail, but don't realize that that's directly linked to like a YouTube or to like a Google Docs, and so some are like, really? And I'm like, yes. And so this year we've really started experimenting more with the Google Apps and just using Google Docs slides, and the kids are just amazed how they can actually collaborate on the same slide or on the same project at the same time as the person across from them. So I try to put that little learning curve in there for them if it's something that they haven't really seen, and I think that's important. So I always put in like whatever, I always try to design the lesson with how I think it'll go, and then I always had double the time because I know it's going to take them longer. So,
Exactly.
and so it's kind of like their comfortability. You know, if it's something that's going to be on their phone, like if we do an activity with an app on their phone, then they're more accustomed to using their phone than they are their laptop. And so it's just kind of the world that the high schoolers live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important that if you're going to do something with a phone, then they use those apps a little bit more. But if you do something on the laptop for the kids, or even an iPad necessarily, I think that they're going to have a little bit more of a learning curve. So I think that's important to take into consideration whenever I'm planning my lesson plans.
Great point. Yeah, because one way to lose kids is that you get frustration, right? And when they see the leader in the classroom feeling frustration, they're immediately going to feed off of that. So knowing that there's going to be fail points and being open to that and planning accordingly, great tips.
Sure. I could jump in real fast if you want me to. So as far as engagement versus kind of fooling around with devices, because that certainly could be an issue. I have a one and done policy for my BYOD. If kids misuse it one time, they can't bring it again for the rest of the year. That kind of helps them remember. And when they come in, they're supposed to unpack, put it on the corner of their desk. And when they take bathroom breaks or when they switch for another, switch to lunch or whatever, we have backpack locks, and they have to lock up their devices in their backpack. So if someone's going to steal their device, they have to steal the backpack, which is hard. That kind of helps them to stay focused and using it properly. Also, as far as keeping them, obviously using your device just to replace paper and pencil isn't super as engaging, obviously. So I like Casey and I think Kyle mentioned a lot about creating to show what they know. One tool to help them make sure they're creating something that's going to be useful and solid is I have them storyboard, kind of plan it out first before they can create something. That I think helps them stay engaged. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming. And also, I think somebody mentioned with like a flipped classroom video, keeping it short. I do Edpuzzle when I flip lessons. Awesome website and app, and it allows me to embed questions in the video. So that kind of helps it. If it's like a 7-minute video, I can actually embed questions along the way, and that helps them to kind of stay focused on the video. And it also helps me to know if they understood the content.
I'd never heard of that. That's awesome.
Oh, Edpuzzle's awesome.
Yeah, I have to agree with Stephen. Edpuzzle is way better than Educanon, if you heard of the two.
Yeah.
Edpuzzle, you can just do a lot more with it, and it's still just a nice clean cut. You just look at the video. That's what I use like in some of my pre-calc videos too, and it's amazing just to gauge their learning in like a longer video that they have to watch.
That's great. I always just had to add stuff in it or put something at the end. So.
I have to tell you guys, I am so thrilled that we got together in the Hangout and the Geekout, if you would. I've known all of you through INE Learn and different Twitter chats, and just seeing the things that you share on a regular basis as INE Learn, kind of watching that stream, and this is great. We have had viewers coming and going, and we've not had any questions, which I'm shocked. But I'm thinking that, I don't know if you guys are all familiar with the Communities of Practice on Google Plus for Indiana educators. Couple of nodding. I am definitely going to share the archives in our middle school math and high school math groups, our communities, because I hope more people see this. You guys have this, I love changing ideas and building off of each other. If you are able to stay, I'm going to ask the last question that we didn't get to, because I think this is really critical for people who just haven't had these experiences yet and haven't had to kind of to take these initial steps. And the question was about yourself as a digital learner. What kind of experiences have you had in this process of going digital with your kids, and what would you recommend to somebody who is just getting started? I saw that grin.
Kyle, go for it. You go first. Okay, I'll put the pressure on you guys. I guess it kind of comes down to, do you become a teacher to teach content, or do you become a teacher to teach kids? And so by flipping my lessons, it allows me to teach the kids in the classroom when I actually see them. And especially with high school math, so many kids have pressure from doing the math, and like they come to class. I give them a little survey, like a Google form survey, and they're like, I ask them their thoughts on math. They're like, I hate math. I'm horrible at it. Sorry.
You're fine.
No more bells, I promise. But a lot of them come up with, I've never been good at it, and so that's always a challenge to me. What can I do to make it better for you? And so I think that's a good question to pose to teachers that are scared of technology but not scared of kids. It's like, well, are you a teacher to teach content, or are you a teacher because you want to teach kids and help others learn? And so I just kind of stick with that every day and thinking, okay, our kids are 21st century kids, but the math we teach is like 20th, maybe 19th century math. And so we got to try to bring them up to speed quite a bit. And so that's a big thing that I think that most teachers should think about is the kids are not, they might be doing some of the same problems, but just not the same way they did it, even 10 years ago. I guess that's it for me.
Great. Thank you for going first and setting the course for the others.
So, okay. So you're saying, like, what's some advice we want to give to someone who's just kind of wanting to dabble with?
Yeah, that, or even just sharing what you went through becoming a digital learner. Because, I mean, most of us, when we were learning how to be teachers, we weren't really learning to teach in this manner. So you yourself have been a digital learner as well.
Okay, so for me, I'm fairly tech savvy now, but I don't understand how anything really works exactly. Wires kind of freak me out, honestly. So like, I'm not super duper technical at all, but I've kind of, when I first moved, I moved from Maryland to Indiana about 7 years ago, and I was a 5th grade teacher for 6 years, and when I came here, I would not have called myself tech savvy. Like, I would have had a hard time putting, the computer together. But honestly, I took a class. It was offered by the township about using, and I just gotten a Mac laptop for a grant, and I had a little 2-year-old boy at the time, and we played on it, and he would be my little. I would video him, and then I would play around with with iPhoto, and I got good at that. And then I played with GarageBand, and I got good at. And before you know it, you just start with one thing, play with it. It's kind of fun. You realize it's not that hard. Get good at it and try another thing. And that helped me to kind of be brave enough to try stuff with my students. And I always tell the kids, there's a good chance this is going to be a disaster, and usually it's not a disaster, and the kids, will often teach me things that I didn't even know about the tool. So I highly recommend. So for me, just try it at home first. And just give it a shot, and the kids are going to be sponges. A tip that I have, anytime I enroll my students in something, I always enroll my son Benny and my daughter Jillian and my dog Reggie into it, and that way I can kind of see what it looks like on their end, so I can kind of play with it. And a lot of times, if there's like a parent component, I'll be a parent for one of my kids and see what it's like as the parent side, and that sometimes helps you to troubleshoot issues before you do it with the kids, if that makes sense. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that Reggie has accounts too.
I think that's a great idea. I'm going to have to start doing that. I'm the same way. I always tell my kids whenever we jump into stuff, you guys, we're all in this together, we're learning, and, this might crash and burn, I just don't know. So, but when I didn't like the way, when I first started teaching math, I didn't like how frustrated kids were, and I didn't like how helpless I felt at points of time because I couldn't get to everybody. That was the biggest downfall I had. And so I guess I became a digital learner out of just knowing that I needed to change, do something different in my teaching. I wanted to reach more kids differently, and I knew that I wanted to engage more kids, and so for me, I knew I had to do something different. And when our school started talking about doing this one-to-one, I got pretty excited, and so I just kind of jumped in, and I wouldn't have called myself techie. I just loved teaching, and I loved seeing kids' light bulbs go off, and so and I love seeing them get excited about stuff. So it kind of just led to it. But I would say it's helped me kind of take control of my own learning. I had to go out and start to learn what the heck Google Drive was. And I was scared of it for the first probably year and a half, and I was scared of Twitter for the first year and a half. Now I couldn't live without it. I guess I just am passionate about it, and so it's something I want to learn, and so I'll go figure it out. Now if I want to find something, I YouTube it or watch a video on how to do it, and that's what I'm trying to teach my kids how to do too. If they're not sure how to do something, they have this device in their hand that can teach them. Yeah.
That's good.
You guys are definitely digital content rock stars, and I am so glad that we connected in today's Geek Out. I can't thank you enough for giving up your time, because I know two of you used your prep period, and see, your kids have been so gracious sharing.
Haven't it been so good? Yeah. It's been really good.
A chance to kind of get all the hands there.
Yay!
So again, for our viewer and those who've been coming in and out, and I'm sure those who will be watching this on the archives, come back March 13th, Digital Learning Day. I know amazing things will be happening in these 3 classrooms throughout the day. And again, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you giving up the time to do this. Seriously, you're rock stars, and we'll be sharing this archive not just in the regular places, but in the community to practice as well. Have a great Friday, everybody, and we'll see you on Twitter.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.